It's good to be with you this morning. I encourage you to take out your Bibles and turn to Colossians 3. Colossians 3. What I want to do, of course, beforehand, extending welcome to all of our visitors. We're happy. We have a lot of visitors today. Happy that you're here today, and encourage all the members to go meet some of these people and say hello. I'm sure, and I hope that they will do that for you. But what I'd like to do is start out with just a lengthy Bible reading. And just read 17 verses here in Colossians 3, describing what it means to be a Christian. Mr. Terry last Sunday morning covered verse 17, but we'll just read up to verse 17. Chapter 3, starting verse 1. If then you were raised with Christ, seek the things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on the things of the earth, for you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. Therefore put to death your members which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. But now you yourselves are put on all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created him. Where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ is all and in all. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection, and let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Thank you for reading that with me. A couple of weeks ago, we had a very big moment in our society that we have once a year, and that was the Super Bowl. And someone jokingly told me that the way you tell who a Christian is, who the real Christians are and who the fake Christians are, is who comes to worship on Sunday night. And that may have been true for a time, but I think especially now that we have recording devices and we can DVR things, the Super Bowl is not as big of a temptation anymore when you can simply just come to services and watch it later. But what I want to talk about this morning is along the lines of our very strong obsession in this country and our society with sports. We are obsessed with sports. And I don't think that makes us stand apart. Every generation on this earth has been obsessed with some kind of competitive attribute. Whether it was the Olympics, whether it was the gladiator games, whether it was even war. We have been obsessed with being competitive with one another. I don't think that's all a bad thing. But we are obsessed with it, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed. Several years ago when I was worshiping with David Maxson, he did a sermon, and I stole this title from him, Sanctifying Sports. And that's what he wanted to talk about. And what he did is he mainly focused on the big aspects of sports, not coming to church services to watch a football game, that sort of thing. We would spend so much money on college football, but not be willing to give back the same amount of money that we're spending in those endeavors. And I think that is something that can be talked about and something that's needed. But when I was kind of reflecting on my life, especially after reading this verse, with my life as growing up as a child, the first 18 years of my life, and hopefully one day, if I do get married and have kids, is something that I want for them to participate in too, is not the professional view of sports. That did not consume my childhood. Baseball or football, it didn't matter. What consumed my childhood was Little League. That's what consumed my childhood. I'm not going to say that's not all a bad thing. This is what I used to do. I did it all the time. And I think many of us here grew up doing something like this. We played Little League. There I am right there. It's just so cute. But this is what we did. And when we were little, we started T-ball. And of course, I played baseball. So all this is going to be baseball analogies. But I played T-ball. You play when you're really young, and you just keep on going until you quit. And I think I played up until I was 15 years old. And the only reason is that if I played baseball, I was going to hang out with guys all day. Or if I joined the choir, I was going to get to hang out with girls all day. So I decided when I was 15 to start choir instead. Which was all right. But the thing is, even when I started choir, it was still something that I was involved in. And something you had to do. My sister and my brother, they were in band. So even that, it was these things, these basically extracurricular activities that consumes our lives. Every Friday, what are you going to do? You're going to go play ball. What do? At least usually twice a week when you're in Little League, you go practice for an hour and a half. This is what we do. And I think it's important that we examine this part of our lives and see if it matches up to Colossians 3. Because I think if we really truly examine this, we'll see that there's sometimes when it doesn't match up to Colossians 3. Or there's sometimes there's opportunities where we can get it to match up to Colossians 3. And just before I get into this, I don't want to make it sound like I'm slamming this, so this is bad. This was great for me. These three guys, that's my dad. We all went to church together. There's Joshua Carter, Chase Council, Max Searcy, people you don't know, but they went to church with me. They were part of the group. And that's what we did is we all went and played baseball together. And of course, we worshiped together and became brothers in Christ as we got older. But sports, in its general sense, we learn a lot of good attributes in this being competitive, whether it is actually maybe a sport or band or whatever you're involved in. Boy Scouts would be another one that you would learn these things. But you would learn dedication at a very young age. You understand that you have to be dedicated to something to be able to complete it to reach your goals. You learn things such as teamwork. How important it is that you can't do things by yourselves. You have to rely and trust on a team and be able to work with the team to accomplish your goals. That's something great that we need to know. At a very young age, we learn about hard work in sports. It's not easy, it's not always fun, but it takes a lot of effort. And we learn how to exhume that effort to accomplish our goals. As well with this, we learn how about authority. We understand that the coach will tell you what you need to do, what you don't need to do. And in that situation, you learn something that's going to help you later on in life. Because of these three things, what are you going to need in your family? To run a family, what will you need to know? Well, you would need dedication. You need to learn how to work with a team. And guess what? It's going to take hard work, isn't it? What about your career? Same three things. A career takes dedication, teamwork, hard work, and I've heard it said that coachable kids become employable adults. But I think this is a very strong part of our society that we need to keep up. And let me take it even to a more serious step. What about the local church? If you expect your child to be able to be a working part of the local church, what are some things that are going to help them? Well, dedication will help them. Learning that we're dedicated to Jesus Christ. Teamwork with the brotherhood, even when it's not easy, but understanding that we need each other. And of course, hard work. That even a local church being a part of here, it takes effort to be here, to be doing the things that we need to do. I just wanted to point this out that I think that sports, especially in a little league sense, when we're on our most vulnerable age, is good. And that's what I want to mean by this. Of course, as well, to add one more thing, the very first people I invited to a gospel meeting when I was young, the very first people I ever invited to a gospel meeting were the other kids that were on my baseball team. That's the way I got involved in the community. So in a sense, this is not just something bad. I don't think it's something we just need to throw out. But it is something that we do need to examine. I think I've made that point. 1 John 2:6, and we're going to start pulling some stuff out of Colossians 3. It's one of my favorite verses. It says, "He who says he abides in him ought also to walk just as he walked." And what he's making the point is you can't walk in darkness, say you abide with God. If you do that, you're a liar. You can't do both. So if you do abide in him, if you have been raised with him, you say you're with him, then you must walk as he walked. Talking about Jesus Christ, especially when he was on the earth. I want to imitate everything that he does. Take that to what we're talking about with this subject. Can you play as Christ would play? Absolutely, you can play as Christ would play. And of course, I know in the New Testament, we don't have any examples of Jesus being a kid playing. The only time we have Jesus as a child is when he's 12 and he goes in the temple to go work with the priests there and they teach each other. We don't have that example, but I imagine this, that Jesus, even as a child, was extremely social. He was part of the community group that he was a part of, that he belonged to. And I take that from when Joseph and Mary have lost him. It's not like he's gone for just a couple of minutes and they realize he's gone. It was actually some time before they realized that they had separated from Jesus, from Joseph and Mary. And I think what the reason is that Joseph and Mary knew that Jesus was very social. And that was Jesus would do even at 12 years old, as he would go and talk and spend time with other people. And I can imagine that Jesus experienced everything that we today experience. He would have experienced some kind of playtime, even as a child. Can I play as Christ would play? Absolutely. It is possible that I could play as Christ would play. But how would Christ play? Well, he would play like the new man does in the image of he has been created in Colossians 3. He would be merciful. He would have been kind. He would have been humble, meek, and long-suffering. And there we read that in verse 12. These are the things that we're supposed to put on as the elect of God. We're supposed to be put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, and long-suffering. These are the things that would be expected of the new man. Can these things be applied to us in Little League, or maybe parents of Little League, or coaches, or umpires, whatever it may be? Can these things be applied? Of course they can. If you were here in the adult class, Al actually started his intro of this. And every time I get scared in Bible class now because people start robbing what I'm going to talk about on Sunday morning. But these things can be applied and should be applied. And usually when we're talking about these things in a spiritual level, we actually go to analogies about things that happen in sports to make our point. So they obviously should be applied. And we'll give some more application in just a second. Verse 13 in Colossians 3 talks about forgiveness. We forgive because Christ forgave us. That's how Jesus would play. And as well, verse 14, what he says the most important thing is, above all these things, he would have put on love, which is the bond of perfection. As a child, I remember playing Little League. And I remember there being a shortstop that we just thought was the coolest guy in the world. And of course, when we're little, and especially if you're in these situations where you play this different kind of sports team, usually you play with two grades, right? So the older grade and the younger grade, they'll be on the same team in the same system. So we'd have basically fourth graders playing with third graders. And there was a fourth grader who played shortstop, and he by far was the nicest guy on the field. He was also incredible. He was the best person on the field, but he was the nicest. If you fell down, if you got hit, he would be the one to come and pick you up when the inning was over. He was always the first one out of the dugout, and then he would wait for everyone to get in the dugout, even the right fielder who had to run all the way from right field before he went in the dugout, congratulating every single one of them for a good inning, even if the inning was bad. I saw him once get in between an umpire and a pitcher. They were about to have it off because of some bad calls. But the player actually stepped in between them and calmed down the situation. That is how Jesus Christ would have played. That is how you play as Christ would have played. Because he exhibited mercy, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, forgiveness, love. You can exhibit those things, and they should be exhibited. Now, as well, not just with the players, but with the parents. That's a huge problem. And what's really sad is when you have play with Christians and the Christian parents are either encouraging the anger, and they are absolutely not representing as Christ would watch his child play at all. Where's our parents that exhibit the mercy, the kindness, the humility, the long-suffering, the forgiveness? Because as we know, baseball isn't perfect. Football isn't perfect. Mistakes are made. There must be some person that can calm the situation, forgive the situation, and help everyone move on for even something as simple as a little league game. And what that takes is that takes Jesus Christ. He's the person that can do that, and he can exhibit that through you. Something that Jesus would have not done is he would have not been wrathful, malicious. He would have not been blasphemous. And of course, he would have not spoken filthy language 8 through 9 there in Colossians 3. Just things he would not have done. I'll never forget playing baseball. And what we used to do is if you struck out, you had to come in the dugout and you had to make sure the rest of the team knew that you were mad, that you had struck out. And there's a level of understand you're going to be upset if something like that happens. And obviously you're not going to be happy. You're not going to run and give people high fives. But when the one kid came in and slung his helmet at the end and threw his bat and almost hit another player, that was exhibiting wrathful, blasphemous, even speaking a filthy word, using filthy language. And what his mama did is his mama came in the dugout while the game was being played, spanked him in front of all 12 of us, and then made him apologize to all of us. That is Christ in a parent. And guess what happened for the rest of the season? There was no little kid that was wrathful, malicious, blasphemous, or spoke any filthy words, did he? What it is that if you're a parent and you see unlike Christ's behavior on any band field or baseball field or football field, whatever field it is, and you don't discipline them, you're letting the opposite, the Antichrist, reign on the field. If you're a parent, discipline your children to the point of that they want to exhibit these better qualities, not these wrathful, malicious, blasphemous, or speaking filthy words. People try to make the excuse for the filthy words is that, I was in it, I was all up about it, I just didn't think, it didn't help myself. Well, I'm sorry, but it's not a good enough excuse. You need to be able to speak the things and have full control at all times. If you're at the point where you can't participate in something like this because you can't control your mouth, then you need to quit. And I'm about to explain why in just a second. First and foremost, as I think the chapter starts off, is that Christ's priority would have been to seek the things above. He was so much more concerned with the spiritual aspects going on in his life. And that his priority would have been our spiritual situation. And that's why he came to the earth and he died and he was raised from the dead for us. He would have sought the things above. We just read that again. Verse 1 of chapter 3. If then you were raised with Christ, seek the things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. For you died and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, and you will also appear with him in glory. And this is basically the solution for everything. If you come in and understand that you're going to seek the things that are above, your priority is not going to be what our extracurricular activity is, but our priority is always going to be Christ, who is above, who's sitting at the right-hand throne of God. You're not going to have any of these problems. There's going to be no temptation to sin because that situation is not your priority. God is your priority. The reason why God is our priority is we seek the things that are above. That these extracurricular activities don't have as much powerful meaning to us as that is because baseball never died for me. Football did not die for me. Soccer didn't die for me. Softball didn't die for me. Band didn't die for me. Jesus Christ died for me. No one's losing their lives out on the field. But Jesus already did lose his life for me. And when my priority is there and I understand that, then so many problems go away. And that's why he starts off this chapter. You need to seek the things that are above, not the things that are of this earth. One of the bigger problems we get into when we focus on sports, and maybe when we want to go into high school or we want to go into college and continue playing, is the drug problem. And I understand that there's a case about steroids, but I don't even want to go there. The friends that I had that continued that on, the drug problem was alcohol. And that's what usually got introduced when they were with these teams. Alcohol, and usually tobacco gets introduced. But it doesn't just stop with tobacco. It always ends up leading to marijuana. And then you've got college students that have been smoking marijuana for 4 years of their life by then, and they're just in college. That's terrible. And that's a sin. And what it is there's Christians that fall prey to this because they realize that they're seeking the things of the earth. They care so much more about their image in front of their team members than they care about their image in front of God. And that's when they fall into sin. And I make the same point I made with the excuse about the filthy language. If you have that problem, then you need to quit. You don't need to do it anymore. You need to walk away because you need to seek the things that are above. Again, I enjoy ball, but I'm not willing to go to hell for it. And that's something that we need to think about. Taking this a step further into seeking the thing above. Is our priority on the home team? I almost had up here root for the home team. Is your priority the home team? Well, what is the home team? And what am I talking about? Your true home team would be verse 15 of chapter 3. You were called in one body. And that's the body that we should be thankful. That body is my home. Turn to Galatians 6. Galatians 6 verse 10. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith. So where is the house here? Where is my home? It's the household of faith. It's us. It's the God's family with God at the head and us as brothers and sisters. This is home. This is my home team. Especially in this passage, why should we especially want to do good for the household of faith? Because they're our home team. They're the people that care about us, the people that want to take care of us. They are our family that's going to be our family for eternity. That is our home team. And if you have that idea that I'm going to seek the things of the above, you're always going to be more concerned about your church family than you'll ever be concerned with anything else. And of course, we could talk about sports in this other category, but we could talk about our careers. We could talk about all these other things that consume our lives that's not our home team. That's not the people that are going to stick with us when things get tough. And that's what I've noticed about a lot of this. I feel special about some of my team members and the other things I participated in when I was in high school. But the only ones that I'm still in contact with, those members, are the people that were Christians that I played with. I'm not really in contact with them anymore. And what it is the relationships that we make on the field, the relationships we make at work, they're all temporary relationships. They're just for convenience sake. But when we're with our home team, it's not a convenience sake relationship. It's a relationship built by the love of Christ, which happens to be eternal. So to ask ourselves these questions, when we spend Saturday driving to go wherever we need to go, to the competition, whatever it is, do we also spend other Saturdays doing things for our home team? Do we spend Saturdays meeting the needs of the local work, whether it be doing good to those that are a household of faith, asking, hey, is there any person that I can help? Can I take my whole family to go help this person this Saturday? To be able to show my children, my wife, my husband, whatever it may be, this is the way we practice the love of Christ. This is the way that we root for the home team. Galatians 6 is full of these. Verse 1 of chapter 6, Brethren, if a man is overtaken by any trespass, you are spiritual to restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you be tempted. Is my goal here to root for the home team? I need to take care of the people, part of my God's family, part of my church family that's in trespasses. I need to be my mission this Saturday to restore them. Maybe we need to go visit them. Maybe we need to go ask if they want to study with us. Verse 2, we need to bear one another's burdens, so fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks himself to be something, then he deceives himself. But let each one examine his own work, and then let us have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. For each one shall bear his own load. Is there anyone part of my home team that has a load that's just unbearable? Do I need to go and take my whole family, get my whole group involved? We're going to go help some of these people with their loads, with their burdens, because I want to fulfill the law of Christ. And verse 6, finally, let him who is taught the word share in all good things with him who teaches. Do you ever spend a Saturday saying, let's go get some of these gospel meeting flyers that we're going to have next week? We're real excited about it. Let's just go down our street together as a family and invite people to the gospel meeting. do we spend a Saturday doing something like that? Because that would be rooting for the home team. That'd be rooting for where it's most important, is doing the Lord's work. And of course, I'm not saying quit sports. I tried to make that at the very beginning. I'm not saying quit those things. What I'm saying is exhume actually more energy into your home team, into things that are more important than that. Learn from the things you take from sports and apply it to your Christian life. It's going to be helpful. Use the same amount of hard work you put into this and now apply it to your local church. Because I know we've all been involved in things like this. Please just share that same energy that you would put into something else. Maybe to get a little bit more heart-poking, heart-tearing. What happens when we root for the visiting team? What I mean by is the things that are of this earth, the things that we put our care and devotion in, other than our home team, our church family, our God's family. What about when we do that? And I think it's very evident that we are rooting for the visiting team when we show this by our works. And here are some works that I think you show when you are rooting for the visiting team. What happens if, maybe your child could say this, or maybe even you can be willing to admit this. When you live in a situation where you never have ever missed a game, but you will miss worship. So we will never miss a game. We will always be there for every Little League game because that is so important. But you know what? Worship's just second nature. If it doesn't it doesn't mess up with our game time, we'll come to worship. But if it does mess with our game time, we can't miss a game. You have that type of attitude. What about when practice is never skipped? We're dedicated. We don't miss practice, but we will miss Bible class. Because practice is something that I'm dedicated to. My team depends on me in practice. But you know what? My team doesn't depend on me in Bible class. What about when Bibles and materials are lost and incomplete, but we will never, ever show up to a practice or a game without our gloves, without our pads, without our cleats? That is awful. That someone would be so opposed to their home team that they would spend all their effort and energy and see them incredible in something like sports, but see them awful at part of their local work. That is so backwards. Why would we do something like that? What we should see is the people that are most dedicated to their Little League team are the same people that are most dedicated to their church family. That's what we should see. Because both of those attributes, those attitudes should be applied. Because Colossians 3, Galatians 6, that does cover the way we act on the field, but it more importantly covers the way we act with our church family, with the assembly of the saints. One thing to add to this before I move on is that the home team, we've already won. We already have a victory in Jesus Christ. And that's what the whole book of Revelation is about, is that we all can overcome because he has already won the game for us. Those other visiting teams, the other things of this earth, you don't know if you're going to win or lose those. And you are going to lose some of those. But the home team, this team, already has a guaranteed win because of who our leader is, because of what Jesus has already done for us. So just for common sense sake, we would want to go for the home team. Maybe one of the best things about playing baseball and some of my memories is when I got older, I was always really slow, so I never ran that fast. So I'd have to hit the ball really, really hard just to get on second base because I would not get around the bases very fast. But every once in a while, I popped one. It feels good. I don't know if y'all saw somebody with baseball, but you get in there in your stance. You know how you hit that ball so clean that the ball feels like a sponge. And then you get to do this little walk when you're going to first base because you're not running. You want to watch the ball go. And especially you hit the home run and you get to round third. And that's a great feeling. Now, me, I was so slow. I was always so tired by the time I got third base. But you get to round third, and what's great about it is you get to see your family, your mom and your dad on the bleachers, and they are just hooping and hollering. They're so excited for you because you're rounding third base and you're heading home. That's awesome that you're heading home, and it's excited to see your parents there. What was always sad was there was that one kid whose parents never showed up. And even if they did hit the home run, their parents weren't rooting for it because they just didn't care and they didn't want to be there. And maybe that's a lesson for another day. But there's one Father who's always watching us play. He's always watching us play. And this is something I think about. I think about that He watches me when I worship. That's true. I think about when He watches me when I'm at school or when I'm at work. But guess what? Even when we're little or we are parents, He is watching us participate in the Little League teams and the other curricular activities that we participate in. He watches there too. Psalms 139 says, "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down. And you are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether." Meaning He sees everything. He knows all my ways. He can tell you about when I used to play baseball. He can tell you about how I preach now. He can tell you what I'm going to do in the future. He knows all my ways. All of them. And I don't know if God feels excited for me if I ever hit a home run. I don't know about that, but I do know this. When He watches a parent, when He watches a child, when He watches do us whatever we like to do for fun, He does feel like we've hit a home run sometimes. But it's for different ways. We score with Him when He sees us show kindness in defeat or victory. He would think that, hey, my child, they just hit a home run. He sees us hit a home run when we forgive another player, another coach, another umpire or parent because we remember that He forgave us first. He sees His children hit a home run. He sees them hit a home run when they refuse to use filthy language, but instead they replace it with humility and long suffering. God sees us hit a home run when we replace our own lies for instead with love. And when He sees that one kid that shows kindness, when He sees that one parent that forgives another, you know He is that beaming Father that is so proud of His child because they just hit a home run. And I think one of the reasons why that is so special to Him is because when you live that way, when you live the Colossians 3 life, when you live it at Little League, when you live it with your church family, what that is, when you're practicing His commandments, you are rounding third and you're on your way home. And that's why it makes Him so happy. That's why it makes Him so happy. On the other hand, it kills Him when He sees you put so much effort into something else and it's not into His family. That kills Him. What He wants is He wants to see you hit the home run. And that's what God has been asking us to do by being His and living the way that He's just asked us to live. If there's anyone here this morning that's ready to follow Jesus, if you realize that you need to make the change in your life, you need to live the way He wants you to live, you need to repent of your sins, you've made that decision. And if there's any way this congregation, this church family can help you with that, we want to do that. We want to help you repent. We want to help you pray for forgiveness. We want to help you get baptized if that's what needs to happen. If there's anything that we can assist you with spiritually this morning,